Revelation for Life, we looked at the wrath of God. We saw that Great Babylon gets a special portion of God's wrath in the last plague. Revelation 16:19 told us that Great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. How can Babylon exist in the last days when it was destroyed centuries ago? We're about to dig into the intriguing mystery of Babylon. Stay tuned. We've already covered the outpouring of God's wrath in as simplified a manner as possible. I know some of you like the more in-depth breakdown, so we're gonna pause in our narrative for a bit to examine this event that takes place during the last plague, the destruction of Babylon. If you just want to get on with the narrative, you can jump to the next episode. But if you like to dig deep into cryptic imagery and Bible mystery, you don't want to move a muscle. Let's get into it. Revelation 18 speaks of the city of Babylon in the future tense. Verses 1 and 2 say, "And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened by his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird." The text begins with, "After these things." This is not a flashback to a prior event in history. This is part of the rolling Revelation narrative. How can Babylon fall in the future when it no longer exists? In our last mystery episode, we looked at how the Babylonian Empire was succeeded by Medo-Persia, then Greece, and finally Rome. We looked at how the Antichrist will arise out of this Roman Empire, and we even looked at how much influence Rome has had on our current world order. All of that was in a political context. But in that episode, I put the questions on the table. How does God define an empire? And does God see an empire only as a political power, or does he measure and validate its influence in broader terms? Well, today, I'm going to answer that question by saying that God definitely looks at more than just political power. So, whereas we looked at political Babylon in the last mystery episode, today I am looking at spiritual or ecclesiastical Babylon. When the Jews were under Babylonian rule, the king had a dream which no one could interpret. Daniel was able to tell him firstly what he had dreamt. The king saw a great image or statue. The head was made of gold. The breast and arms were made of silver. The belly and thighs were made of brass. The legs were made of iron, and the feet were made partly of iron and partly of clay. A stone which was cut out without hands struck the statue at the feet of iron and clay, crumbling the entire statue. The stone then became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This can be found in Daniel chapter 2 from verse 31 to 35. Daniel tells the king that the head represents his current kingdom of Babylon. The other parts of the body are kingdoms to come. This is in Daniel chapter 2, 39 to 40. If you watched our last mystery episode, this should sound familiar to you. Babylon is the head of gold. In 539 BC, the Babylonian Empire fell to Cyrus the Great, king of Persia. The Medo-Persia Empire is the breast and arms of silver. By 330 BC, the Medo-Persian Empire had fallen to Greece at the hands of Alexander the Great. The Greek Empire is the belly and thighs of brass. From around 148 BC, Rome was gaining control of parts of the Greek Empire. By 30 BC, the last great city of Greece had fallen to Rome. The Roman Empire is the legs of iron. But there's a fifth tier. What about the feet? Daniel 2:41-42 says, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken." The feet and toes are not spoken of as a fifth kingdom. So this is still Rome, but a very different Rome, a divided Roman Empire. In our last mystery episode, we saw that the Antichrist will rise up out of the Roman Empire with 10 kings. According to Daniel, the 10 toes of the statue are the very same 10 kings. Daniel chapter 2, verse 44 says, "And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever." The toes are 10 kings who will be defeated by the coming of Christ, who is the stone cut without hands. Now, spoiler alert, that happens in our next episode. Just as the stone hit the toes and brought the whole statue down, Christ will destroy the kings, bringing the whole empire down. Just as the stone became a great mountain and filled the whole earth, Christ will then bring God's kingdom to the entire earth. But that's talking about political power. I said we wanted to look at the spiritual or ecclesiastical side of Babylon. Well, that's wrapped up in the head. The statue represents changing empires throughout the ages, but Babylon is the head of the statue. That is significant because the body speaks of actions, the head speaks of ideology. I put it to you that Persia, Greece, and Rome are significant for what they did, but Babylon is significant for what it represents. Just as your feet ultimately hold up your head, the fourth kingdom upholds what Babylon represents. If you trace the history of Babylon, you will find that it originated as the city of Babel. Genesis 11 verses 1, 2, and 4 say, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Babel is the first time man has organized themselves in unity against God's wishes. History tells us that the purpose of the tower was linked to the first false religion in the world. It's clear that the Tower of Babel was not in keeping with God's instruction to fill the earth, and that it was not created to glorify God. The text says that it was made to make a name for themselves when God was to be paramount. Basically, Babel was man's first attempt at a one world government without God. Fast forward to the Antichrist, and you should start to see how Babylon is the head of the kingdom which will be present in the last days. The Roman Empire might accomplish the new one world order, but the ideology behind it is Babylon. But more importantly for this episode, Babylon represents the genesis of one world false religion. Fast forward to the Antichrist, and you should start to see that he might cause the entire world to worship him, but the ideology behind it is Babylon. We all know the story of Babel. God created the language barrier and forced the people to scatter, halting their rebellion. But if Babel, which became Babylon, was the first organized religion, as the people scattered, they would have taken that religion with them. Hence, why all religions of the world bear some similarities. All false religion originated at Babel. Babylon is therefore not just a political kingdom, but a representation of the birth of false religion. Revelation 17 exemplifies this when it personifies Babylon as a harlot. Revelation 17 verses 1, 4, and 5 say, And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore who sitteth upon many waters. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. The Bible refers to nations that commit idolatry as harlots. God expects to be the one and only God, and he gets jealous when his divinity is ascribed to false gods and idols. That's why he sees such behavior as harlotry. To be the mother of harlots, this woman would have to be the first harlot from whom all others have sprung. Her idolatry would also have to be especially egregious. The Babylonian religion evolved as the empires changed from Babylon to Persia to Greece to Rome. All of these empires represent an evolution of the Babylonian false religion. We saw in our last mystery episode how Rome, the last successor of Babylon, has influenced the world. While a lot of that influence is legal and political, much of it is spiritual or ecclesiastical. As we learned in the last mystery episode, the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto were named after Roman gods. Just as the early Babylonians worshipped the celestial objects as deities, every time we look up in the sky and refer to these objects by those names, we are unknowingly ascribing Roman deity status to them. But what can we do? Rome has cemented this into our world system. The days of the week and 4 months of the year are also named after Roman gods. Every time we refer to a day of the week, we are unknowingly saying that the day belongs to a Roman deity. Again, what can we do? Rome has cemented this into our world system. Public holidays like Easter and Christmas actually originated as Roman holy days. Actually, that's what a holiday is. A holy day, as dictated by the Roman Empire. The Roman Catholic Church put Christian imagery to the pagan rituals and cemented them into our world system. Again, what can we do but push for pure Christian usage of these days, which have been cemented into the public calendar? This is the religion of Babylon, the ecclesiastical ideology of Babylon that has remained at the head of the statue throughout the ages. Political empires changed, but just as the body holds up the head, Each empire that succeeded political Babylon has upheld this religious system, upheld this harlotry. So, you should be able to see why God is so upset with Babylon. The whole world has been seduced and deceived into this harlotry. But who or what exactly is Great Babylon? Revelation 17:18 says, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth." Babylon is a religious system and ideology, but it is represented by a city full of idolatry and false religion, which is tied to the kings of the Roman Empire. The current incarnation of the Roman religious system is the Roman Catholic religion. This religious system is tied to and represented by Vatican City. This is my opinion based on scripture, and believe me, there's a lot more we can dig into and break down. Unfortunately, that's beyond my allotted time and beyond the scope of this season. That being said, if you are interested in a deeper explanation of my conclusions on the fourth kingdom and the mystery of Babylon, let us know in the comments so we can tailor future content for you. And please, join us next time. We'll be advancing our narrative with the big climax, the Battle of Armageddon. That episode is not to be missed, so keep it locked. This is Revelation for Life.